Hi, my name is Matthew, which you all already know. My talk this week is creativity, the questions you need to ask. Do you know what? I don't think I need that. My first slide is Ken Robinson, 2009, made the statement, schools are killing creativity. Can I have a show of hands? See who sort of agrees with him? Yeah, do you all agree with him? No? It's not a quick question. Can I put yes or no? So, that's two for you. Can I ask why you sort of agree with him?
It's turned into an institution. It's a factory model of how to produce as much of the same result in people as you can.
I personally think he's talking rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
I think he might be true for secondary school.
No, I don't think it's true in any sense, because how can he make that statement? Do you mean how can he say school education is killing creativity? Yeah, education is responsible for a lot of things. Like, we're still educating our children now for a future that doesn't exist. There's no jobs when you leave school. So I mean, there's no factories. But how we can make the statement that education is actually killing creativity? What is creativity? Can it be measured? How can education increase creativity? Does creativity involve intelligence or emotional intelligence? If you can't explain it, does it even exist? Can you measure creativity? No? Anybody agree that you can or can't? No. But you do. Obviously, if school is killing something, it needs to be realistically measured. So you can say whether it's going up and down.
Wouldn't you measure creativity by the levels of original thought, innovation, and different things coming out of the school?
How though?
Like the levels of innovation that a student has.
How would you know? Are these going to be self-reported measures, or are you actually going to put a ruler up the side and think, oh, well, that's going up?
Well, it'd be qualitative data, wouldn't it?
Well, this is the classified 10 categories for measuring creativity. Take a look. We have tests of divergent, attitudes and interests, innovation, personal injuries, biographical, teacher nominations, peer nominations, super ratings, judgments. The list goes on. Do you know what I mean? How confusing is that? Even the guy, Hoko 2010, who sort of reviewed this, was highly critical, because most of these measures are self-reported. And as we know, as humans, sometimes we do tell the odd porky, especially as children, especially you, Mr. MacArthur. I know it. So what do you think? Now what do you think? Do you think creativity, do you think school is killing creativity? You still think? Why? How can you support something you can't measure?
Well, you can.
Yeah, but they don't work. The guy who invented them now is criticising them because they basically, most of them, a majority of them, is self-reporting sort of.
I think you can tell the creativity of a country or of an area by the level of innovation, by the level of technological advances and different things that come out of that area.
So what does that sort of?
Some areas might be really creative, but they can't have technological advances because they don't have the money and stuff.
We're looking at this in a different aspect. Just think about education. Think about music. Think about art. Think about you're thinking at a creativity at academic level. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's being measured within a classroom, which basically does English, art, and whatever to a curriculum. Creative people: Steve Jobs, Van Gogh, Jim Morrison, Oprah Winfrey, Ken Robinson. Now, what do these people have in common, despite the fact half of them did a lot of drugs? I said half of them, didn't say all of them. So what's the connection? Any ideas? Mr. MacArthur?
They're humans.
That is one connection, I suppose. Some of them. Jim Morrison, bit iffy on that one, like.
Well, they're from the Western world.
Talented.
They're all from lower socio-economic families. They all started from nothing. Ken Robson himself suffered polio as a child. His father was a paraplegic from an industrial accident, born in Liverpool. Jim Morrison came off a farm. Van Gogh, well, we all know Van Gogh, the guy cut his ear off, really. I mean, says a lot. Obviously not that well educated. Oprah Winfrey, again, came from nothing, really, to be one of the most richest, powerful women in the world. And you have Steve Jobs, the guy who was educated, but again, dropped out of education because his parents couldn't afford it. He didn't want to buy into their life savings. Socio-economic status. Some of the most creative people of all times are the ones with the least, the ones who come from nothing. Do you mean check out whoever most famous people started from low income families, from basically families with nothing? The thing is with creativity, you can't measure it because it's defined personally. It's the individual. What you think is creative, I might not. And how can I measure that difference? So if education is killing creativity, who says? Have we got a group of people, a small group of people who agree that, do you mean that it's just the statement itself is just silly because you can't measure it? And it's self-identifying. It's a personal judgment. What you think is creative, I might not. It's like you walk around an art gallery. I walk around and think to myself, really? What's that? And Mr. Mark Arthur might walk around with his educated mind and think, dear, look at the colour. Do you mean that's really saying a lot to me? It's down to personal judgment. The only way you can really improve creativity is through experience. To me, you don't start off being creative. Yeah, you do have the odd phenomenon, really, like the Beethovens and stuff, but you don't. Experience of life is an increase of creativity itself. Without knowledge, there'd be no creativity. So without education, Steve Jobs became one of the sort of greatest name of our generation because what he achieved with Apple. He went through education. The only reason he dropped out is because he couldn't afford it, but he still went to education after and still achieved great things because of his creative mind. Now, to make a statement that creativity is killing education, wouldn't Steve Jobs be an exception to that fact? But the list goes on. Do you mean, so the Forbes top 10 richest people in the world all came from nothing and went to education and still succeeded. Go on, Mr. MacArthur, hit me with it.
So you use it 6 examples of creative people.
That's just 6. If I was to go on, I'd have to put about 400 slides.
Okay. But it's not creativity, a greater depth of thinking and a willingness to take risks ultimately. That's what all 6 of them had in common.
It is.
Now, for all the students here and in the university setting at the moment, how many of us are willing to take risks? How many of us are able to start our own business, are able to come out with a degree having something we're going towards? Because that should be a sign of creativity.
Do you make a risk when you come to university? Because that choice, you don't know where it's going to end up. You have a degree, you could end up working in a call centre. Life is a risk. Do I get out of bed this morning because I might actually get run over by a bus?
Yeah, but that's not a very high risk.
Well, it's still a risk. Do you mean? Yeah. See, there's a lot of people that got run over, which proves my point. But how can you measure something? And these statistics come from Maslow in 1962. And here we have the man himself. If you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. A bit contradicting with what he first said, but I believe he was wrong. He is wrong. So, any questions? Yes.
In my blog a few weeks ago, I looked at ability grouping in secondary education and how the ability group people in physical education, design and technology, IT and that sort of stuff. And it was really interesting to find out that even if the children are really creative, can come up with their own designs, really clever ideas, if they weren't good on paper or couldn't canvas it for exams, who are in below the stats. And that gives out a message, you know, it doesn't matter if you're creative, you know, write down stuff in exams.
Exactly. But that's what's wrong with the system. Because it can't be measured, people are losing out across the board. I mean, not everybody's good at putting things onto paper. Some people are more creative. You get carpenters, you get painters, you get writers, you get... Do you mean?
Yeah, so it's article that education's giving out the wrong
Yeah, but why is it given out? Because it can't be measured. How can it be killing it? Do you mean? There are people who, every time you sit the test, it's a test of creation. To school, as I made a comment on someone's blog, school is nothing but hurdles. Do you mean? And some of those hurdles you have to be quite creative to get over or go around. Do you mean? Not everything, you can't blame education for everything. Do you mean? You can blame the people who are sort of up here, who are dictating education. Do you mean? But we, as I said, we're educating our now young people for a future that doesn't exist. There's no jobs out there. We have to change. I just watched the whole schooling blog, which sort of hit the nail on the head. Do you mean? The homeschool is a different way of educating. Hello. Oh, sorry, let's say this first.
So,
If?
creativity is measurable, do you think maybe in schools, not that schools are killing creativity, but maybe that it's not allowing people to show and express their creativity?
You're right. Schools are not encouraging it.
Yeah.
They're not killing it. They're just not encouraging it.
Because I was really interested in art, I loved art at school, but all the teachers were like, well, what job are you going to get at the end of it? Don't waste your time on it.
But that's not just the teachers. My brother was good at art, but that was my parents also.
Yeah.
Who said to him, Andrew, yeah, you're a good artist, but where you going to go with that?
Yeah.
You can't pay the bills with that. So do we blame our parents for killing creativity? You have a question.
I always have questions.
I know. The man with no moustache, let's have it. No, you haven't. Go on.
So, are you saying now that there's no such thing as creativity, or that schools do promote creativity? I'm confused as to
What I'm actually saying is education isn't responsible for the death of the creativity. It doesn't encourage it. Do you mean?
So what is responsible for this?
How can you be responsible for something you can't actually measure?
So then,
It's down to the individual's perception of what creativity is.
So then, if
Is creativity something you've got or you haven't got?
Do you mean?
Yeah.
How? What big explosion of colour or what sort of thing would you categorise as creativity? Do the small things don't matter? Is that what you're saying? Those small challenges that people face every day. Do you mean? Like Ken Robinson himself, the man suffered from polio. Do you mean? He overcome the barrier to become a great educationalist. But wasn't that creative? His struggle to overcome is the way that his brain worked out well.
But then surely, I mean, the legend, Sir Ken Robinson.
That's going to be you in a couple of years.
Sorry?
That's going to be you in a couple of years. Minus some moustache, mine, obviously.
Okay, so the man, the legend.
The legend.
Alright. He had to become creative, or he pushed his way through, as you've shown with the 6 examples. Does that mean that we need to emphasise more of that, allowing to happen in the schools, or they're just the 6 that were around in that generation, the rest just aren't creative, so get over it? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm saying that we measure creativity at the moment on skills that don't work, right?
Yeah.
So these big accomplishments that are outshadowing everybody else are measured by skills that don't work.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So how can you say that it's outshadowing everybody else? It's only down to personal opinion. You say it's outshadowing everybody else and everybody else can go right, but they might say different. Do you know what I mean? That's personal perception, mate. I can't change your opinion, I don't want to. That's not the point of the talk. I think I'm special. Is that the same?
We think you're special.
I do. I am published. I am a poet. I'm just not sort of Dylan Thomas or anything, but I do like my creative outlets, I suppose. But everybody does. Everybody likes to doodle and colour and God knows what. I can appreciate it. But I can appreciate it in everybody else as well. Is that it? Job done? Thank you very much for listening.